Okay, we're making good progress with this. Let's do the eyes and the nose. For this, let's come to our layer panel, and it makes sense to draw these things underneath the blocked layers because they are going to hide any brush strokes which go beyond, say, the edge of the eyes. So I don't need to worry about doing more blocking in and things like that. So I need to create a layer underneath the block layers. So come down to Sketch and plus sign to create a new layer. Now, what brushes was I using to do my paint work with? Let's come to Recent and Larapuna. That was the one I was using. So first of all, I'll do the nose. That should be straightforward enough. And I'm just going to choose colors from the ears to do the similar thing. Those colors are a little bit strong for my liking, but look, we'll go with it. And let's up the opacity and quickly put in a pink nose, a little bit darker towards the bottom, and a little bit lighter, and make my brush smaller to add a little bit of detail towards the top, a little bit larger. In general, especially when you're doing a painterly technique like this, use the largest brush you can get your hand on, and let's try a lighter highlight. Not so keen on that. That's looking a little bit intense. Let's choose a lighter, less saturated color, put that down. That's a bit too light, so lower the opacity and tap down. Yeah, I'm still getting the light colors, but they're going down in a more textured way because I lowered the opacity. Let's find something a little bit darker as well. Just down the bottom, maybe around the sides. That'll do. All right, normally I would just block in, say, the pupils. But instead, let me show you something for the sake of showing you another technique. I will choose the color of my inking layer. Remember, it's not completely black. It's a very dark brownish color. And if I come back to my layers, I'm going to come to the ink layer. I'm going to tap on the icon, and I'm going to choose Reference, third from the bottom. Now, when reference is turned on for a layer, it lets my flood tool know that no matter which layer I'm on, it should pretend I'm on the reference layer just when it's looking for borders. In fact, look, let me show you before and after. I will turn off reference. I will come down, and I'm a little bit worried about painting into that nose area. So I'm going to create another layer, put it underneath because the nose is in front of the eyes, and I will flood inside the eye area. And oh dear, the whole area gets flooded and I have a zombie kitten. Not nice. Well, unless you like zombie kittens. But if I turn on reference on my ink layer, come back to the layer before and now, look at that. It's pretending the marks on the ink layer are on this layer just while reference is turned on. Now I'm going to move my pen to the right to try and get rid of that halo, and didn't quite work, and my pen ran out of space on the right side of the iPad. Now, there is a little bit of a finger tappy dance that you can do to carry on increasing the threshold as you work. I find it's one of those gestures on the iPad which gets so complicated and frankly doesn't work all the time that instead I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to move my pupil over to the right-hand side, drag as far as I can, so my pen is pretty far over to the left. Then I'll start increasing the threshold until there. That's the point where the flood fill is getting so excited that it floods everything, and then I just move back a little bit until I get that point where it just figures out what it's supposed to do. All right, let's do the same for the other one. This time round, it'll remember what the threshold was, and I can do the same. I can up the threshold until I flood everything, then pull it back towards the left until I just get the color I want, but be careful because the eye on the right is still flooded. Drag it back until I get that. Now, let's check that. Has it worked? No, it hasn't. I'm still getting a slight halo there. The flood tool is great when it works, but it doesn't always work, so I'm just going to quickly come around and just fill in these areas because I don't want these halos. And come to this side. This one's a bit better because the threshold was set higher, but still just one or two little bits to work out. Also, I noticed that I've got a little bit of bleed from the light fur areas just in this corner here, and also maybe that nose as well. So let's deal with that. I will long hold on my eraser, so I'm erasing with my ink bleed tool. And then we play Hunt the Offending Layer. Look, I know which one it is because I just did it. It's layer 8. There's a little bit of pink there, so tap on layer 8. Get rid of that. Whoops, went too far. My brush is too big. Come on. Play nice. There you go. There's also a little bit of that light colour. That's probably from the block bib layer, is it? Yes, it is. So choose the block bib. Isn't it nice that I named that layer? So I think, hang on, that's a blocking in area for the bib, which is where all the light fur is. And because I named my layer, I know where to go looking for it. Now let's do the irises. Let's do, come on, cats, green eyes. Let's do some green eyes. So which layer can I use for this? Well, I could always create a new layer underneath layer 9, but maybe I can use that. Now, let's play safe. Come to the sketch layer, create another layer. And for this, I want a dark green. Maybe more towards the yellowy part of green rather than the colder turquoisey kind of green. So maybe somewhere around there. And I want to start off pretty dark. I still have my ink layer as a reference layer, so if I flood this area and then drag back and flood this area, and yeah, that worked. Have I got any bits around the outside which need filling in? No, I don't, and no, I don't. Oh, hooray. Okay, so now I'm going to come down to my airbrushes and I'm going to choose, let's try soft airbrush. And I'm going to choose a lighter green and move it more towards yellow, just a touch. And check my brush size. That seems to be about the right brush size. I'll lower the opacity so I can build up the opacity gradually. And I'm going to start putting in some lighter areas around here. And here. Then I'm going to choose a lighter green again and move it a little bit more towards yellow, because the yellow is the warmer direction to go as opposed to going towards turquoise. And as the values get brighter, I want them to get slightly warmer. I will also make my brush size smaller and just start adding a few brush strokes like this. And on the other side. Try and match the brightness. Then, which way shall I do this? No, I will do it this way. I will choose my original colour just by sampling it. I'll come close and I'll make my brush size a little bit smaller and a little bit more opaque. And I'm going to come just around the edge. Just where I put those lighter colours, because I'd like a little bit of a deeper colour just where the pupil starts. Let's do the same thing on the other side. I'm turning it around because that way I can use the natural curve of my wrist because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, well, you'll know to do the opposite to what I'm doing. And since you ask, yes, I have 2 left-handed people in my family. And so if I didn't do this, they would have words with me. I'll make my colour an almost black, but it's not. It's a very deep saturated green. So I just want to blend in the very edge of what I'm doing, just against that very dark key line around the eyes. It just helps marry the 2 different areas together. And on the other side. Now, I'm wondering if you'll be able to see this if I zoom right up close and personal, which one's the worst offender, this one. Maybe you can see that even allowing for the video being processed several times. Can you see some tiny streaks there? Because the airbrush tool, yes, it does a good job, but sometimes when you get smooth colours, which are very similar in value, you will get these tiny streaks. That is not a problem. If I come to my adjustments, and I will come to Gaussian or Gaussian blur, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And as before, rest your finger on the left side of your screen and just slide to the right. And the more I do it, the more everything blurs like this, which is way too much clearly, but I want just a tiny amount just to even out those streaks. That's 3%, no more than that. But I'm getting a bit of a problem here. Can you see it in the very bottom left of my screen? I'm getting a slight light halo. That is because this is blurring out against a transparent background. That's not working. So tap once and you get this little menu on your screen giving you some options. I want to come to cancel. Now I'm going to come to this layer with the green eyes on there and I'm going to turn on alpha lock. Let's do the same thing. Get our Gaussian blur and slide. And no matter how far I slide, because I've alpha locked, this gradient isn't blurring out into the transparent areas because it can't do anything with the transparent areas. I'm looking at my screen recording and I'm getting some slight banding there, which you will probably see. You're just going to have to trust me. This is due to the limitations of the video. So how deep can I do it? I'm on 3%. Let's make it, what, 4%, 3%? Well, I can't see the individual brush strokes at 3%, so I will leave it there. Then just tap on any other tool, and that's committed. Now, yes, I admit it, the style of those eyes with the very smooth transitions, that airbrushed effect, that is a different style to the rest of the picture. If I was doing this as an illustration for a client, I'd probably do a similar style for the greens of the eyes. But the point of this tutorial is to show you different techniques. So let's show you different techniques. And if that means different styles, then so be it. All right, let's do a little bit more with these eyes. Let's make sure we're on a layer which is underneath all the blocked in layers as before and create another layer. Now for this one, what I want to do is put a gradient which is hard on one side and soft on another. Now there are a number of different ways to do this. Let's come to our brushes. I'm in the airbrushing section. I'm going to choose, let's try medium hard brush. Opacity on full. Let's take a look at my brush size. That's a little bit big. Let's try around, say, 6%. And I'm going to make a curve using the natural curve of my hand. I'm doing 1 or 2 little practice strokes. That's about where I want. So, actually that's quite nice, but it's not what I'm looking for. About there. And do it again and again and again. And a little bit up here. So I've got this pretty solid band of white. Let's do the same on the other side. I want a little bit of the green and a little bit of the dark of the pupil there in a curve. Is that about right? Do 1 or 2 practice brush strokes and yeah, about there. Make it fairly big, but I want that to fade at the top edge. So let's come to our smudge tool. Airbrushing is chosen. I've got soft brush. What's my size? I want the size to be a bit bigger. Yeah, about that big. So what size is that? About 8%. I'll lower my opacity down fairly low because I want to make repeated brush strokes here. And I want to gradually blend this up. So I'm getting the whole thing fading towards the top. Let's up the opacity a bit more. Work a bit quicker. And yeah, that's kind of working for me. I'm going to push down and fade because I've got a bit too much of a broad area of white there. So now I'm pushing down from the dark area to gradually take that gradient down a little bit. And I think that kind of works. Let's push down. Just keep going with this until I get something like that. Now that is a little bit too strong, so come to my layers and I'm going to take this down to 0 and gradually fade this in. So I'm just getting a slight edge there. Now that's working, but I've got a problem. My ink layer is on top, so I'm getting the line of the pupil, which is kind of spoiling the effect. So let's see what we can do with that. I'll come to my erase tool again. Let's come to my recents. Yeah, I'll use ink bleed, which is what I use to create that key line. Opacity on full, brush size, just big enough to just get rid of this area. Come to the other side, be careful just around the border. Once I've done that, I can get rid of this, but now you can see another problem. I'm starting to get these lighter areas, which I don't need, but we'll work on that. Come to the other side. Be careful just around the side so I keep the line looking consistent around the outside of the eyes and get rid of that. The eye on the right looks okay, that's how I want it, but the eye on the left, I've got these white areas. What is going on there? Let's take a look at our layers. Yeah, that's it. This layer I've got here where I put the pupils in is to go down a little bit further, so that's not a problem. Choose the color of the key line, which is also the color of the pupils. What brush do I have? Well, I want to choose the same brush I was using, and that's ink bleed. So let's just add a little bit of extra, whoops. And that is an example there. Look, I thought, okay, get started, but I hadn't bothered to choose the right layer. I think I mentioned a while ago, that will happen to you. Well, there you go. It happened to me. Make sure I'm on the layer where the pupils are, and just come here and just trim away these lighter areas and put the pupil black in like this. What about the other side? Is there any problems there? No, I don't see any problems there, but I just want it to be just a little bit more round now that I come back and look at it. And, oh yeah, tiny bit just here. Get rid of that. And there I have that slight sheen that you sometimes get that gives the idea that the eye is wet. It's got that sheen to it, which if you're doing big sorrowful eyes on the verge of tears, yeah, that works. Let's create one more layer on top of everything I've done so far. Choose a straightforward white, come to my recents, medium hard brush, medium hard airbrush. Let's try that. That's going to be in the airbrushing section. Yeah. And make it a little bit smaller, about 18% do I have? And let's just draw a highlight there. And a highlight here. That one's a bit bigger, that's fine. We can do big highlights. And maybe just one or two little bits underneath. I didn't tap quite as hard for that one, which is fine by me. And I'll put another one on this side. Lower the size a bit more and put in a couple of extra highlights there. Let's turn it off and on. Immediately those eyes spring to life. Highlights are going to be what makes your eyes really pop. If I come down to luminance, I've got this one here called Flare. Now my brush size, let's try, say 6%. Come in and just where the pupil meets the green of the iris and just where this little curve is, I'm going to put a little bit just there. Oh, the poor little thing, or maybe just one here. And let's not go for subtle here. Let's take this down to 3% and maybe put another one here and another one here and maybe another one down here and maybe one here. And oh yeah, that's the look I get 5 minutes after I've fed my cat. Okay, we'll do a couple of more things with this, but we'll do that in the next video. As before, if you're enjoying these, please consider liking and subscribing, and check out the discount links underneath this video for the full Procreate courses, along with a link to the Drippy Cat Art Studio. And I'll see you in the next video.